A national championship at stake tonight in Atlanta, Georgia, in the first ever 12-team college football playoff between Ohio State and Notre Dame. We get you set for the national title tonight in the ATL over the next hour plus here on the early line. We will do a triple option a little bit later on with our picks and best bets for tonight's action as well. But let's start our breakdown by looking at the numbers. The Buckeyes, an 8.5-point favorite against the Fighting Irish. A total at 45 and a hook. DRS, what are those numbers telling you about what we can expect tonight in Atlanta with a national championship on the line?
The numbers are telling me that we might not be in for an ultra exciting game, and not because you see the 8.5-point number. It's you see the 45.5-point number, which I'm fine with here because there are arguments to be made where, man, college football is 5 wide. Everybody goes real fast. Nobody plays any defense, and it's just like, street football. They're not going to get that here. You got two really good and talented defenses here. You have two veteran quarterbacks in the pocket. One team likes to operate with getting it in on the ground, which is Notre Dame, and making plays when you need to in the passing game. But you also have that ultra-explosive team in Ohio State, both the run game and the passing game, which should be fun. Also understand this, a little bit more extra time to prepare for a national championship game, to get your P's and Q's down, banged up players that might have a little bit of nicks and injuries that they have. They should be more healthy for this game. But for me, it is going to take a monster effort to win this game by Notre Dame. Now, granted, we've seen it play out before. Injuries happen during games. Turnovers happen during games. It's a one-game playoff. It doesn't need a 7-game series as opposed to some other leagues and sports that they have. But for me, I don't think Notre Dame has to play its best game to keep it close here. I don't think they can win this game, Ben, but that's a lot of points in a national championship game with a quality team to give them on a neutral site.
I completely agree, DRS. You have probably heard from me here on the early line in the last week and a half, which is basically the time we have had off from the college football playoff semifinals to where we are on this Monday with a national championship. Way back in early October, before the first matchup between the Buckeyes and the Ducks of Oregon inside Autzen Stadium on October 6th, I bet on Ohio State to win a national championship at a plus 290 price. Feel pretty good about where I stand right now. When the college football playoff bracket was unveiled on Selection Sunday, I found the Fighting Irish path to be favorable. I bet on Notre Dame at a plus 550 price to win a national championship. I feel pretty good about where I am right now. To Donnie's point, I think the ticket that actually cashes tonight is Ohio State, winning this game outright in Atlanta. But an 8.5-point spread seems a little bit lofty. As we dive into the total, 45 and a hook, DRS, would match the lowest number we have seen throughout the entirety of this first ever 12-team college football playoff. Notre Dame under in its first two matchups, over because of a high-scoring fourth quarter against Penn State. Ohio State over in its first two college football playoff games, but under in the Cotton Bowl 2 Friday nights ago against Texas with a dominant defense. Ohio State, best scoring defense in all of FBS college football this season. Notre Dame not all that far behind. Third best scoring defense in CFB throughout the entirety of this year. And so if we don't see all that much scoring tonight, and even if we trend to the over, DRS, I'm not expecting 55 to 60 points tonight in Atlanta. It makes the burden on the Buckeyes to cover as more than a touchdown favorite even that much higher.
Yes, and the MO would be you want to jump out with an early lead for Ohio State and get Notre Dame out of what they want to do. Be more functional in the backfield, make passing plays when they need to, keep that clock rolling along, use the legs of your starting quarterback, and maybe hang around this game long enough to force turnovers. We've seen big upsets in national championship games before, and we're not talking about a 16.5-point line. It is under 10 here, but the fact of the matter is we can't argue this. Man for man, player for player, pound for pound, Ohio State is much more talented at just about every single position than the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. But the reason that Notre Dame is here, which is what we love, it's a playoff. You can't say that Notre Dame's a national team. Look at that. They just put them in the playoff. There's only 2 teams here, and this is what we ended up in the final.
Sure.
They earned their way in this game by winning games, and quite frankly, I bet against them. I thought Penn State was the better team, and for the majority of the game, they were, but the Irish knew how to pull that game out in the end and make the plays when they needed to, and that's what I'm expecting tonight. When you need plays to be made, Notre Dame has made those plays. Outside of the NIU game, they've been fantastic this season. Same thing for Ohio State, outside the Michigan game.
We will talk about these 2 teams and where they trend entering tonight in the first ever 12-team college football playoffs national championship game. We'll do that up next when Hour 3 begins on TEL. We welcome you to our third and final hour live right here on this Monday on the early line on Sports Grid. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. A very significant day on this Monday, Inauguration Day, a holiday weekend for most of you out there. It is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And of course, it is a national championship at stake on this Monday night in Atlanta between Ohio State and Notre Dame. And throughout this final hour, most of it will be dedicated to a preview of that national title matchup between the Buckeyes and the Fighting Irish. We'll hear from the people. We'll look at the actual people that will play in the game, otherwise known as the player prop market. We'll talk some hardware. We'll run a triple option, our favorite bets for a national championship game on this Monday. DRS, so much to dive into here in this final hour on TEL.
Exactly. But by the way, outside the X's and O's, Ben, are we going to have to get some divine intervention in this game? Because 2 quarterbacks here that put their faith in God, and who does God like more? Does that play into it tonight? That's what I'm thinking about as well, Ben. Defense, offense, and God. 3 factors here, not special teams included into that equation. So we got some extracurriculars that we might have to break down, including that point spread and that total and those prop bets.
Only one stadium has the figure of Jesus looking over it. That would be Touchdown Jesus, of course, in South Bend. Cold and frigid temperatures in the greater Atlanta area. But we're playing inside Mercedes. Come on. We've got 2 northern teams playing in a back-to-back national championship game for the first time since the mid-'70s, when it wasn't the same 2 teams each and every season. The SEC out of the national championship game, despite the fact this game will be played in Atlanta, Georgia. So those 2 teams from the great Midwest, the states of Indiana and Ohio, bringing the frigid cold temperatures to Georgia tonight. How do the people, I should say, see this game playing out on a Monday? We had to learn what the best bet was. We'll do that right now and Fade the Public. At Sports Grid on Twitter, what is the best bet for tonight's national championship game? Is it the Buckeyes as a hefty favorite, laying 8.5 points? Is it the Irish as the hefty underdog, catching 8.5? Is it the over of a smaller total at 45 and a hook? Or will it be the defensive struggle we expect based on those pregame odds and under 45.5? Most of the public DRS, more than 40%, back in the Buckeyes, willing to lay more than a touchdown, 8.5 in favor of Ohio State. Second most selected option is Notre Dame as the underdog, 29% of the votes as well.
Yeah, you take a look at Ohio State. But by the way, both of these pathways to victory have been extremely tough. Like Indiana Quality Ball Club, you got that victory for it, Notre Dame. Even the Georgia game, you take a look at that. You would like to see Carson Beck, but obviously you're getting a backup quarterback, still beat a quality opponent. And then you have the Penn State game, which they were down late. They sort of snuck by some of those games. Not necessarily there. But when you do take a look at Ohio State and the firepower they have at wide receiver and at running back and on their defense, everybody seems like a superstar. And their pathway was a big-time team from the SEC, really humbled them. Oregon, which is supposed to be the best team in the country, really humbled that football team. And then you saw Texas at 28-14, which that score was a little bit non-indicative of what that game actually was. It could have been tied up late, which ended up a 14-point line. But maybe, let's just say, a sexier path to victory for Ohio State. So the public is going to take that into account as you enter into this game. And also, if you're just saying, Donnie, no spread, pick the winner. You'd be a fool not just to pick Ohio State because of what the odds are absolutely representing. But Notre Dame, outside of the NIU game, which was bad, And Marcus Freeman brought this up on a joint interview with Ryan Day, which I thought was interesting. We've been in playoff mode since the NIU loss. Like, we never once during this season thought we could have afforded another loss. When you look at Ohio State, the 1-point loss on the road to Oregon didn't even matter if they actually beat Michigan as a 3-touchdown favorite. We knew they were already going to the college football playoff. So there is something that Notre Dame has been basically in playoff mode for the entire season. And look at their records playing major Division I college football. Ohio State 13-2, Notre Dame 14-1. So Ohio State has lost twice and has lost to an inferior opponent. So when I look at the actual breakdown of where the public is betting, or should I say voting in this, I can't fault them because Ohio State is the better team. And if you think they're going to win, you think they're going to cover as well. But I went opposite of that. Like, I picked Notre Dame because I just have seen the MO for Notre Dame is count them out, always bouncing back. Yeah. And that's going to be a positive for them entering into the game tonight against Ohio State.
Again, I have a national championship ticket on both teams to win a title tonight. I am feeling good. I expect my Ohio State ticket that I bet much earlier this year, back in early October, to be the one that actually cashes and wins on this Monday evening. But I also bet Notre Dame plus 9.5 when this line opened up. I believe the Fighting Irish defensively can do enough to keep Notre Dame in this football game. And I believe the Irish on the ground actually have more of an advantage than we are really giving them credit for. Ohio State has been the best scoring defense all year long. As we saw at the end of the Cotton Bowl against the Longhorns, the Buckeyes have been the best red zone defense in all of college football this season. But there have been a few games this year, when you look at the game against Michigan, the regular season outing against Oregon, college football playoff game against Tennessee, regular season game against Indiana, where the Buckeyes have allowed some yards on the ground. And that is still where the Irish want to excel and establish things offensively. DRS, let's also not forget about Notre Dame's defense. Third best scoring defense in the country. Third best passing defense in college football. Yeah, they did allow some yardage on the ground to Penn State, but they allowed fewer than 70 against both Georgia and Indiana. And when it comes to taking the football away, nobody is better than Marcus Freeman's Fighting Irish. 32 total takeaways this year, most at the FBS level in college football, 151 points off said takeaways. That is why I think Notre Dame keeps this game within margin, because of a defense that I think will answer the bell once again tonight in a national championship.
Yes, and also there is an MO out there to say, okay, look at Ohio State in their season. They basically rolled just about everybody, but that Michigan game is an outlier, 13-10, lower scoring here, running the football, playing great defense, shortening that game as opposed to lengthening it here, but just by making sure that you use all three of your downs to get the first down and just keep that clock churning and keep the pressure on Ohio State. Because the one thing we know, when you are talented, you like to get out there and rev that engine early and show the passing game is there, and Jeremiah Smith is dominating, and Quinshon Judkins is hitting on long runs at this point. You slow that down and you start to create doubt, which means Ohio State will start to press. Then you might get an advantage for Notre Dame. But as I said, key in this football game is the start for both of these teams. If Notre Dame could have the lead at halftime, watch out Ohio State. But this doesn't feel like one of those games, Ben, where it's 21-10 Ohio State at the break. I don't think Notre Dame can come back from that. It doesn't sound crazy, even though it's only 10 points. You get a good play here or there. I just don't think the MO of this game is Notre Dame must delay this game as long as possible to frustrate Ohio State.
That first half total, 23 and a hook. If you are expecting the defensive struggle, then a full game number of 45.5 would indicate you need it to be a slow-scoring start tonight in the A and probably stay under that number. Penn State and Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl went over the same exact total, 45 and a hook, because of a high-scoring fourth quarter. It was 10-3 at the half in Miami, but it was a Notre Dame field goal late and an opening possession in the second half touchdown that allowed the Irish back into that game. Notre Dame has been great at the end of the opening half. In the start of the second, here throughout the college football playoff, Ohio State has never trailed in the CFP, outscoring opponents 111-52. That's an average margin of victory, 19.7 points per game. A national championship game tonight on a Monday in Atlanta between Ohio State and Notre Dame. 8.5-point spread in favor of the Buckeyes, a total of 45.5. We have talked spread, we have talked total. We will continue to do so throughout this third and final hour as we get you fully set for tonight's national championship game. But DRS, now it's time to get to the individuals that will impact tonight's outcome. And we start with Ohio State offensively. An arsenal for Chip Kelly that really you can attack any defense, even the best defenses in the sport, and find success. Will Howard's number, 241 and a hook. Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins have both been incredibly productive throughout the college football playoff. Travion a slightly higher number by only 2 yards in front of Quinshon. Jeremiah Smith coming off the worst game of his young Ohio State career against Texas. Just one grab for only 3 yards. But the veterans, Emeka Egbuka and Carnell Tate, both very, very stout against Texas. When you look at the numbers for Ohio State, which prop do you think is most impactful and which one gets your intrigue the most?
Well, if we're looking at that total, right, mid-40s, it doesn't really say to myself, well, let me go to the receiving props, let me go to the quarterback props to sort of throw it all around the barn. Now, having said that, we are playing in a dome. We are going to be on a fast track. That is an electric team, and it wouldn't surprise me. Hey, by the way, Will Howard threw for 275. Is that so crazy to think about? Or Jeremiah Smith had a big day, or Egbuka had a big day? No, that doesn't surprise me at all. But I just look at the game myself and say, if it is going to be lower scoring and two good defenses, does that lend yourself to a little bit more handoffs than possibly passes in this game? So you go right for Judkins and Travion Henderson on those numbers, and they're almost identical. 56.5 and 58.5. And you can't really say, like, you look at him like, well, Judkins is the more explosive guy. I've seen Travion Henderson bust a lot of long runs this year in critical situations. So for me, I tend to lean, if I'm saying, who do I want one player from Ohio State tonight? I usually lean with, I think I know I'm getting 10 to 13 carries out of Henderson with the chance to bust a long run. And look at the spread itself, Ben. You have to do this. It's paint by numbers. If that is close to a 10-point spread, what's theoretically the option in the fourth quarter? Ohio State protecting a lead, which mean more runs to me. Travion Henderson, probably the guy I would look to tonight if I'm picking any one of the player props just on yardage from an Ohio State perspective.
I have loved betting Travion Henderson's number throughout the college football playoff. He has been Ohio State's leading rusher in all 3 games. Quinshon Judkins did score twice on the ground against Texas. The 75-yard screen pass with 13 ticks remaining in the opening half to Henderson, also hitting Pater. But Judkins has had 36 attempts to only 24 for Travion Henderson. To Donnie's point, Henderson a little bit more explosive. The odds makers expecting a bounce back for Jeremiah Smith after his career low. Just one grab and only 3 yards against Texas. But I would keep an eye on Emeka Egbuka. That number up, by the way, from 55.5 earlier in the week to now 59 and a hook. Egbuka in all 3 college football playoff games, exactly 5 grabs with at least 51 receiving yards. Carnell Tate, the Chicago kid, Ohio State's leading receiver, 7 catches for 87 yards against the Longhorns. Notre Dame, 3rd best passing defense in the country. They have been a top 5 passing defense all 3 seasons under Marcus Freeman. And if Will Howard gets a little bit shaky tonight, Notre Dame will sit back there and eagerly look to take the football away. But, Donnie, there has to be a thought here for the Irish. If they are going to stay within striking distance, not only does the defense have to be sound, does the ground game have to be good, but they are going to need a lot out of Riley Leonard. What do the Irish need out of their signal caller tonight to keep this game close and maybe even pull off the upset to win a national championship?
Unless you're looking for like a miracle win and cover like Penn State, Miami in 86, where Miami just turns the football over 5 times. You have to do all that much. Riley Leonard can't throw for, like, in what world, then, do we win a national championship tonight against Ohio State where Riley Leonard throws for 165? And so when I sometimes look at game scripts the way they're supposed to be, if Ohio, like, there's a chance that Notre Dame can win this football game if Riley Leonard throws for 200 yards, right? Like, hey, he had a pretty good game. There's also game scripts where They get beat up, and he just has to throw twice as much in the second half than they normally have to, and he throws for 200 yards, and they lose. I don't see any game script that has Riley Leonard at 150 or so, and they win this football game, unless, as I said again, 5 ridiculous turnovers to none, let's just say, by Ohio State in this game. So Riley Leonard, I think he has to throw 180 or more for them to be in the ball game with a realistic chance to win.
We'll talk more about those props. You saw 178 in a hook for Leonard, a very key number on the other side of the break. We continue to preview the national championship game between Ohio State and Notre Dame with an eye on the prop market as well. DRS, we were just discussing Notre Dame starting quarterback in Riley Leonard. What do the Irish need out of their QB tonight to even keep this game close against Ohio State's best scoring defense in all of college football this year? 178.5 is the passing yards prop. Second highest rushing yards total, 36 in a hook, is the number for Leonard against Ohio State tonight. 18 carries for 35 yards and a touchdown against Penn State. 14 carries, 80 yards in that Sugar Bowl quarterfinal victory against Georgia. But in terms of the passing attack, Riley Leonard has thrown for at least 178 yards in 7 of the previous 10 games for Notre Dame, including 223 against the Nittany Lions. Donnie, if Notre Dame is going to cover, they need to be stout on the ground. If Notre Dame is actually going to win a national championship, Riley Leonard needs to put together a performance for the ages tonight inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
He does. And the only thing that usually trips you up in college is you see those great numbers like, hey, man, Riley Leonard's probably going to get 10 carries tonight. Well, the fact is he can get 10 carries and 50 yards and sack 4 times for minus 22 yards, and you don't end up hitting your prop bet. Those are the tough ones. You're right, though. Everything does fall. But when you look at other rushing props here for Notre Dame outside the quarterback, and you see Jeremiah Love, you just saw that graphic pop up at 40.5. He's already up to 42.5 because it's a correlation. Like, is anybody that's backing Notre Dame go, yeah, you know what? Jeremiah Love has a bad game. I'm not worried about it. Like, no, he's your explosive guy. And the problem here is he's not fully 100%, even though he gave a yeoman's effort in that last game, made some plays when he needed to, included that touchdown, which he just would not be denied there. You take a look also down the list, Jadarian Price at 25.5. He's an electric running back as well. He's got to hit his numbers. But I'll tell you the one guy that you look at, and I don't know if it's whether it's in the passing game or the rushing game, Aeneas Williams is that key third down Austin Eckler type back where you could miss badly on him where he doesn't have a catch or a run. But there are game script like this one where if you expect him to be down, he's going to be much more involved. And also, if you're looking at Jeremiah Love, the chance of playing on turf and banging up that knee again and not getting those full carries, you might be seeing more Williams stuff. So I know we're going farther down that ladder, but you see him at 7.5 rushing yards. That's one handoff on a 3rd and 13 play where they're just playing field position. Or if you're looking from the passing game, 1 or 2 screen passes enough to get through that number. So there are hidden talents there on that Notre Dame team. But when I just look at the correlation, it seems simple. Like Jeremiah Love rushing for 22 yards. That's not a good sign for Notre Dame. Jadarian Price only getting 3 carries because they're down and only needs 26 yards, 25.5 yards. That's not good here. So I just look at the correlations. If they're going to win, they better at least get around those numbers to give them a chance. If they're below them, Notre Dame's not going to even cover this game, Ben.
DRS, we are expecting a defensive grinded out style. 2 of the 3 best scoring defenses in college football all year long. And there is natural handicapping thought for an underdog to keep a game close. And within margin, you keep the total under. Less available points to be scored, less of an opportunity for said favorite to run up the score in cover by double digits, which is basically what the Buckeyes would need as an 8.5-point favorite. But as we have seen throughout the college football playoff, if you are going to have an underdog cover or even win outright, the total needs to go over. We have seen 2 underdogs cover a number throughout the college football playoff so far in our 10 total games in the 12-team era. Both of the underdog covers, the total went over. Notre Dame, a very slight underdog by the time we got to kick 2 Thursday nights ago in Miami, but they won outright against Penn State. That game went over. Arizona State in 2 overtimes, covering as a 13.5-point dog against Texas. The offense needs to be efficient for the Fighting Irish tonight to keep this game within striking distance. And Notre Dame is not hoping for a cover. in a national championship matchup tonight. Notre Dame is hoping for an outright victory in the program's first national title since 1988. Ohio State hoping for the same. In the first ever college football playoff back during the 2014 season, Ohio State won a national championship. Will history repeat itself for the Buckeyes in the first ever 12-team college football playoff tonight? And of course, DRS, the Buckeyes a hefty favorite. And we can look at offensive MVP awards. We can look at defensive MVP awards. And of course, the short favorites, the guys with the shortest prices, they play in the scarlet and gray. For Ohio State, offensive MVP, Will Howard, a minus money favorite. I'm not so sure that's the greatest bet with so many offensive pieces that can tell the tale for the Buckeyes tonight.
No, and you're right. And it doesn't really correlate to the total. Like usually you pick the quarterback bet if it's 58.5, because that means a lot of people got involved, but who is the centerpiece? It's the quarterback. 22 of 29, 310, 3 touchdowns. You give it to him. But in a game that's posted in the mid-40s, you could legitimately have Will Howard 13 of 21 for 168, but Jeremiah Smith got 121 yards of the 168 or so of that, and the 1 touchdown steals it. So I don't know about Will Howard. I'd be more likely to go with maybe a Travion Henderson or Jeremiah Smith, because the chances for them getting multiple touchdowns and being the focal point, even though the game script should be a little bit slower with that 45.5. That's the way I play that one out. So no, I wouldn't just go quarterback in this spot. I'd look for a player with a chance for a long gain and a long touchdown in a lower scoring game to have that advantage. Higher scoring game, of course, it's going to go to the quarterback. If we play this game into the 40s, I don't think it's going to be a quarterback.
289 yards for Will Howard in the Cotton Bowl in that CFP semi against Texas. A touchdown, albeit with an interception. As we said, Jeremiah Smith had his worst career day for Ohio State in that matchup. But Will Howard has thrown for 260 yards or more 5 times this year. 280 plus 4 times. All 3 games in the college football playoff, in addition to the regular season matchup against the Ducks. In the previous 4 games that Will Howard had thrown for at least 260, Jeremiah Smith had at least 87 receiving yards. The odds makers expecting a bounce back. He has the highest number tonight for Ohio State. I still think you are getting a slight discount on the guy that has the most receptions now this year for the Buckeyes, the veteran in the wide receiver room. That's Emeka Egbuka for this Ohio State offense. But I do believe you are finding some good value offensively on Travion Henderson or Quinshon Judkins on the ground in terms of those MVP prices. Riley Leonard at a 5-1 number for a Notre Dame team that's plus 310 in the money line. Not a bad look either. Defensively, again, DRS heavily skewed to the Buckeyes. A team that has totaled 16 sacks throughout the college football playoff in 3 games. They only had 35 in 12 regular season games as a group, in a play made by Jack Sawyer on a Friday night in a semifinal matchup that will be remembered forever in Columbus. The scoop and score in the 83-yard touchdown run in that return against Quinn Ewers in Texas.
Yeah, I'll tell you who won't win it. That's Igbinosun here. Maybe for most penalties in a national championship game, maybe him for tackling wide receivers left and right. But also understand this. Like, we look at the offensive and defensive MVPs, and we do line it up like, oh, it's going to be Ohio State because they're supposed to win the football game, and I get that. But sometimes we act like Notre Dame doesn't have like a legitimate offense where they won every game 17-12 all the way through. This team has lit that scoreboard up before and has the potential to do it. Even look, the playoffs, like where the quality steps up. And some of those games played outdoors in colder conditions. 27 points, 23 points, 27 points. This isn't a team that struggles to get into the 20s. So that's what we're looking at, maybe a key indicator on where we're going to go with our pick threes coming up here and some best bets to give away. But I do like that notion of, Ohio State. Ohio State can really move the football, but Notre Dame can't do anything out here. I like that notion.
13 games for the Irish this year against non-MAC opponents. 8 of the 13 to the over. Notre Dame at the end of the college football regular season, 39.3 points per game. That was their scoring offense. The first time in 2 decades the Irish had been a top 5 scoring offense nationally. A pick 3 or a triple option.
Pick 3.
Live right here on this Monday on the early line on Sports Grid. A national championship tonight in the first ever 12-team college football playoff in Atlanta, Georgia. Ohio State and Notre Dame. The Irish seeking their first national championship in nearly 4 decades since 1988. Ohio State won the first ever college football playoff back in the 4-team era in 2014, trying to win the first ever 12-team college football playoff now just over a decade later. 8.5-point spread in favor of the Buckeyes. Total 45 and a hook. And as Donnie said, it is now time for your national championship pick 3, otherwise known in college football as the triple option. Our favorite side, total, and prop for tonight's national championship game. DRS Ohio State outscoring opponents by on average by 19.7 points per game throughout the 3 games so far in the CFP. More than a touchdown favorite to win a national championship tonight. Will the Buckeyes cover? Will this game be closer than we expect? What is your favorite side for tonight's title game in Atlanta?
There's only 2 sides to go with. I'm going to take the points with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish here. And why am I picking Notre Dame? Because I do think that offense can be opportunistic when it needs to. And I know there's a lot of slander on how much better Ohio State is man for man, which is correct here. But you look at the length of the season, the teams that they played, and the points that they scored for Notre Dame, and the defense they play, there's no reason to believe that Notre Dame won't be involved in this game with a legitimate chance to win, even though I don't think they will. But I'm certainly not going to pass up 8.5 points on a neutral site with a football team that's built on good defense and a ground attack and a veteran quarterback that can make plays when he's need to, and it's already come back from a deficit against Penn State in the final moments of the game to rise and shine. That's where I'm going in this one. Don't love them to win the game with a legitimate chance to actually pull off the upset, but there's no reason to believe this game won't be a one-possession game in the fourth quarter, and I'll take my chances with the 8.5 points.
I have said it many a time. I'll say it one final time. I have a national championship ticket on both teams that will square off to be crowned a national champion tonight. I feel good about where I stand. I do believe that ticket on Ohio State that I bet back in the first week of October will be the one that actually wins this evening. But much like Donnie, I think Notre Dame's defense is good enough to keep them within striking distance of this game. And I think the Fighting Irish offense that is predicated on establishing that run like we are doing here in the triple option will do enough to keep the Irish within that margin. Notre Dame plus 8.5. And Donnie, I think we have a correlated thought on how that might go with a total of 45 and a hook against the nation's best scoring defense in Ohio State. If the Irish is to keep pace, they need to score and be successful offensively. What is your favorite total tonight in the national championship?
I'm going to go with the team total, and one of those team totals was Notre Dame here at 17.5. The other one was Ohio State hovering around that can we score close to 4 touchdowns. And I thought to myself, I just go back game by game, script by script, and say Notre Dame to get to 20 points is essentially what you're asking for. They should be able to do that here. Even in a blowout, Ben, even in a close game where they're still under wraps at this point. They haven't shown any propensity to be a really bad offensive team. And also, I get how good Ohio State is. Still quality offensive players at running back, quarterback, and a good offensive line for Notre Dame. They should be able to put points up. You don't even have to win the game or cover enough for them to think they can cross over to 18-plus points in this game. So for me, I just want to take the simple route. I'm going to get an honest effort out of Notre Dame, and you're always in this. Now, of course, if they have 3 points in the fourth quarter, that's going to be some tough doing. But in what shape are you saying that Notre Dame won't even be competitive enough to have double digits by the time they enter the fourth quarter? I'm not buying that. Give me Notre Dame's team total over 17.5.
There have been times this year where Ohio State has allowed yardage on the ground. Of course, that would be heavily beneficial for this Fighting Irish offensive scheme tonight, coordinated by Mike Denbrock, Riley Leonard, Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price getting back in the fold after a quiet game against Penn State, and Aeneas Williams out of the backfield. Ohio State only allowed 58 rushing yards to Texas, just about 2 yards per carry. But they did allow Jaden Blue to have a receiving score or 2 receiving scores, I should say, in Quintravion Wisner for Texas to be heavily involved in the pass game as well. That's where I think you look to Aeneas Williams tonight for Notre Dame. Donnie, I'm not thinking this game is a shootout. I don't think we see 60 points. I don't think we see 70 points. Heck, we might not even see 50. But I do believe we can go over 45 and a half. Also because Ohio State offensively has been elite throughout the college football playoff. But I do believe Notre Dame, to keep this game even remotely competitive, is going to have to score. Over 45 and a half is how I look at it. This is not a Notre Dame team that has gotten here because they win games 17-14 all year long. This is a Notre Dame team that ranked third in scoring offense this season, in points per game. The first time in more than 2 decades, the Irish have been a top 5 scoring offense nationally in college football. So DRS, as we look now for our favorite prop to round out the triple option, what gets your attention in the national title game?
Let's have a fun one here at the FanDuel Sportsbook. How about fourth quarter points total over 10.5? We usually know the fourth quarter, even if it's close, still tends to get squirrely at times. You have teams that might be blowing a team out, giving up easy yardage and easy points going one direction, and also the ability for one team technically running out the clock, hitting home runs on the ground with very good running backs like Ohio State. And the one thing I do understand about this, I've said during the year multiple times, sometimes not about style points, like in the playoffs, Ben, survive in advance. You see style points a lot in national championship games. This is the last go-around for some of these players. If they're up 14 points and on the 18-yard line with 4 minutes to go, Ryan Day's punching in another touchdown and vice versa for Marcus Freeman. Let's go over 10.5 for the fourth quarter.
31 total points in the Orange Bowl in the college football playoff semifinal in that fourth quarter between the Irish and Penn State. 14 points all scored by Ohio State in the fourth quarter of the Cotton Bowl. I'll talk more about my prop on the other side, but it is Emeka Egbuka over 59 and a half. One of the tough things about not living in the Great Garden State, you can't bet college football player props in New York. This number was 55 and a hook earlier this week when I gave it out on Sports Grid with our partners, Sling TV. DRS, stay up late tonight, my friend. Enjoy the national championship. We'll talk again on Wednesday. Enjoy the money line as well. More on the early line next. A national championship game on a Monday night in Atlanta, Georgia, for one final college football game this season. Ohio State and Notre Dame. 2 blue bloods in this sport, 2 standard bearers at this level of national prominence, but 2 teams that have seen national championships most recently in a very different amount of time. Notre Dame seeking that first national championship since 1988, nearly 4 decades ago in college football. This, the first ever 12-team college football playoff. Ohio State is playing in a national championship game in the first ever college football playoff to begin the 4-team era in 2014. Who was crowned a national champ? That would be the Buckeyes of Ohio State. 8.5-point spread in favor of Ohio State tonight in Atlanta. A total at 45 and a hook. I did mention I would talk more about my prop, my favorite one for tonight. That's Emeka Egbuka, one of the leading wide receivers for Ohio State entering this game. A lot will be said about the 2021 recruiting class for Ohio State tonight if they can end their tenure in Columbus atop the mountain in college football. Egbuka, one of those guys. JT Tuimoloau, another one of those guys. Jack Sawyer, another one of those guys. You look up and down the list. Double-digit guys for Ohio State have played in at least 50 football games during their college careers, and hoping that the one additional game tonight in a national championship will end with that title. By the way, for Egbuka, throughout the college football playoff, exactly 5 receptions in all 3 games for Ohio State, 51 receiving yards or more. Over this number, even a 59 and a hook in both of their opening 2 against Tennessee and Oregon. Jeremiah Smith, correctly so, gets the accolades as the outstanding true freshman. But Emeka Egbuka in that wide receiver room and what he has meant for this Ohio State program is often looked to as the leader and has the most targets and catches this year from his quarterback, Will Howard. Ohio State will enter next year as a national championship favorite as well. Plus 450 for the odds for the 2025 college football season. Of course, that will be crowned in the calendar year 2026. Texas has Arch Manning returning. tied for the second best price alongside Oregon at plus 650. Georgia 7-1, and Penn State has a ton of returning talent coming back to Happy Valley at a plus 850 price to round out the top 5. As we get ready to end one college football season, our eyes will quickly shift toward the future. There have already been some conversations this week in Georgia about a change to the college football playoff format moving forward in 2025 and beyond. Still, even if it remains at 12 teams, will we get rid of those guaranteed buys for the highest ranked conference champs, or would it just be a bye through the opening round based on your ranking from the college football playoff selection committee? I'm not sure we're going to get there, as we've learned through reports, group of 5 programs, Big 12 and ACC commissioners not necessarily in favor of giving up a free weekend for that automatic bid and the guaranteed bye of being one of the 4 highest ranked conference champions. I do think we have seen, though, in the 12-team era, a statement made this year that as we look to expand college football playoffs, as we look to provide opportunity, we are seeing that between these two teams. And I don't think you can question that Ohio State and Notre Dame are not the 2 best teams still standing in college football. If Ohio State wins tonight, they would be the 3rd ever 2-loss champion in college football in the modern era since 1936, when the AP got involved in rankings and handing out national champions, the first since 2007. If Notre Dame wins tonight, they would be the 2nd ever college football national champion at the FBS level. To lose outright in a game is more than a 3-touchdown underdog and still end up a national champ. The opportunity has presented this stage. I'll talk about something else in just a moment, but you should know on this MLK Day, we celebrate a great leader in America who, of course, stood for some big things. And as we get ready for some action in the association, they will celebrate the holiday as well. A slew of NBA games tipping off at noon Eastern time. And as for that national championship game, myself, Kevin Walsh, and Joe Lisi, the College Football Today crew, live at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time for all of your national championship coverage tonight on Sports Grid.